Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're at that time of year when we're starting to work on budgets in Washington, D.C. President recently proposed his 8th budget. And if we want to give credit to the President, he is consistent. He believes that we are just one tax increase, one regulation, one more government program away from prosperity in America. But the reality is Americans in my district are struggling to be able to maintain the jobs they have, and far too many Americans are struggling to be able to find a job. One area where we've had an opportunity to be able to provide good-paying jobs has been in responsible energy development in this country. Today, I'd like to be able to speak to some of the deeply flawed logic by the Obama administration in trying to eliminate the use of fossil fuels in America. Mr. Speaker, over this last year and a half, in fact, despite the administration's best attempts to stifle production, one of the few areas of the economy that has provided some financial relief to the poor and middle class has been low energy. The costs of this has been a result of American productivity and American ingenuity, driving down the costs, making it more affordable for people. It should surprise no one, then, that with his latest budget proposal, the President is trying in earnest to take the little savings that Americans have welcomed right into their wallets and now feed it back to big government. Effectively, what the President is stating is government, Washington, needs those resources more than the American people do. 2 days ago, the President presented a budget that included a $10 per barrel tax on crude oil. His budget stated that this tax would result in $319 billion in revenues that would be used to fund transportation infrastructure, reduce America's reliance on oil, and ensure electric cars and other alternative oil-based vehicles have the technology and charging infrastructure that they need. I believe we need to be clear. I firmly back the notion that we need to have an all-of-the-above strategy. That's highlighted in the bill I've introduced into this Congress, Planning for America's Energy Act, which literally calls for all of the above. It explicitly states as such. But those resources and technologies are only part of what should be a multi-pronged strategy. If true energy independence is our goal, we cannot simply price ourselves out of using traditional energy resources and transportation fuels. Yet that is unmistakably exactly what the President is proposing. So while cheap energy is one of the few things keeping the economy out of the nosedive into a further deep recession, the President proposes a tax on crude oil, whether produced domestically or imported from abroad. That will cut directly into already low revenues and will undoubtedly be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices at the pump. An additional $10 per barrel will be a significant sum even with a healthy commodity price. But on the day that the President submitted his proposal, the spot price for a barrel of oil was just under $30. Given that our oil and gas energy sector is already struggling mightily with this downswing in prices, what exactly does the President hope to accomplish by wresting away a third of that sum? The economic impacts of this policy on an industry that is already struggling would be extremely harmful. Now, I assume that when we envision who the industry is, the picture comes to mind of large multinational corporations. Make no mistake, they too will feel the impacts. But the brunt of an ill-conceived policy such as the President has put forward will fall squarely on the shoulders of small and medium-sized companies that make up the backbone of our domestic oil and gas industry. It will fall squarely on the many contractors who work in those companies. They're geologists, engineers, construction, trucking, well servicing companies, hospitality industry, thousands of hardworking Americans working to provide for their families and working to provide the rest of us with an invaluable resource that we too often take for granted. The President wishes to move us away from oil as a transportation fuel, and so he pursues a purely ideological strategy to force it. Never mind who is trampled in the process. The President wishes instead to pursue electric vehicle sales, which in 2015 accounted for less than 1% of the total car sales in the country, and yet takes the measure to halt coal leasing and bludgeon coal-fired power plants into non-existence. Coal, of course, is being the single largest source of electricity in the United States. These two incoherent policy pursuits are a perfect demonstration of the complete lack of vision this administration has when it comes to achieving actual energy independence. Let's stand up for the American consumer and American jobs and reject the President's budget proposals. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.